This entry is dated the 30th of January, and within this video, I'm going to discuss my lesson and the scenario for it. Because without understanding what exactly the situation was in the school, my lesson choice won't make much sense. So, firstly, the children in the school for the last 2 weeks have been doing state exams, like all grades, sorry, except for the first two. Grades 1 and 2 didn't have to do exams, but all the way from 3 up to 8 were doing state exams, which was something I found quite strange, to be honest, given that they're just children, like such small children, and they're doing state exams. And as a result, the kids have been very stressed, and they'd be doing exams for most of the day, except from maybe 1 to 2 o'clock. So it was very difficult for me to be able to do any lessons with them when I was there. So fast forward to today, the 30th of January, and it was another long day of exams. So I thought it got me thinking of what could I do with the kids, because I didn't want to do something that might drone on because they're tired from doing exams all day. So, and I was thinking about assessments, and is there a way I could potentially do them, just kind of for myself, to see where the kids are after me being there for 8 weeks. So what I decided on was the game Stop the Bus, which I played as a child. It consists of a grid, and you'd have several categories an animal, a country, a food, a drink, a TV show, and then someone would just say a letter, and everyone has to write this out. So what I decided to do was I adapted this, and I just made it easier. I made one category just for food or drink. I made one category just for an English word. I made one category just for an English name. And then I also had animal and country. So for my hour with the children, I told them we're going to play this, and we're going to play it through English. But what I did was I paired the stronger children with the weaker one. I did out a list of strongest to weakest in terms of English. So I put the strongest with the weakest, second strongest with the second weakest, and so on and so forth like that. And it seemed to work out quite well, but then there was one team where neither of them were exceptionally good at English. They weren't the worst, but they were definitely the weakest team, because they had the person that was the strongest of the weakest, but also the other person was the weakest of the strongest. So they were together, and they needed help throughout the game, whether it was myself or the teacher, Denise. So throughout the course of the class, I'd give a letter, and initially it was only the stronger kids that wanted to play, and the weaker kids who didn't have a good grasp of English were just like, oh, this is just another silly English thing. But then as I started putting the scores for each round up on the board, the weaker children got more invested, they started putting in answers for their teammate, and it went on for the entire hour, the kids getting more and more invested in it. And they just ended up enjoying it a lot more, and they just liked having a nice, fun lesson rather than just doing exams all day. And, well, the benefits from this lesson come because just purely by the weaker children working with the stronger children in English, they're going to pick up more words, they're going to pick up more English. And yeah, so they ended up just improving their English in general. Now, the theory behind it, I'd say, as an assessment, it was very teacher observation based, because I was the one leading the class. I was watching, I was seeing, who was putting in work, who wasn't, if anybody was improving as the game went on. And it was also a very teacher-designed task and test, purely by me. But I didn't tell the kids. I was assessing them myself. I just did it just for me, to see whether or not what I was doing was making a difference. And I'd say it was a very summative assessment. because I had all the scores on the board at the end of it. And one thing that actually surprised me was the team with the weakest team, held their own after the first couple rounds. Like initially they struggled, but they kind of managed to find their way around it. Like they weren't able to spell, but they knew how certain English words sound. So if I gave them a letter, they'd say a word that sounded like an English word, and then I'd say, "Did you mean this?" And they'd be like, "Yep, 100%." So, yes, that was my second last lesson in Verdum. I just wanted the kids to enjoy the lesson, and I wanted to see whether or not what I did made a difference. And I'd say it would. I'd say it did, because they all were able to contribute to it. Like every child, even the weakest ones by the end of it.